Hi Year 4, I hope you're all alright. Just a reminder for tomorrow that I'm going to be posting pictures on Facebook of some of the things that you've been doing. So if you've got anything that you particularly would like to share with the rest of the class, or something that you're proud of, or if you just want to send it to me and you don't want it going on Facebook, then please send me an email. I'd love to see it, and so would the rest of your class. I'm going to carry on reading today. We're on page 118, and Bertolt and Virginia have just started to hear the story from Darkus about where he's been, what he's been doing, and why he was off school. So we're going to finish this chapter, and yeah, we're going to finish this chapter today. Okay. Well, I don't know that, do I? Bertolt huffed. He looked at Darkus. I don't understand. What has the beetle got to do with your dad's disappearance? Yesterday, I went to the museum and saw the room he disappeared from. No way! Virginia's eyes grew wide. Did you find any clues? The police already did a thorough search. Bertolt looked over his glasses at her disapprovingly. Actually, yes, I did. Darkus stroked his finger along Baxter's thorax, or rather, Baxter did. The beetle found a clue. Virginia looked sceptical. Darkus described how he'd found Baxter and then told them about the trip to the museum. I wasn't ill yesterday, Darkus said. Uncle Max made that up. He described the collection room full of beetles, the mystery of the empty drawers, finding his father's glasses, and the arrival of Lucretia Cutter. It turns out the room Dad disappeared from is the Cutter Coleoptera collection room. You saw her? Bertolt asked, amazed. The actual Lucretia Cutter? Darkus nodded. I saw her twice, but I'll get to that bit in a minute. Twice? Bertolt squeaked. Who's Lucretia Cutter? Virginia asked. I don't know, Darkus shrugged. She's rich, I know that. She's got the most amazing car and she's big into beetles. Uncle Max thinks she's got something to do with Dad's appearance. You've never heard of Lucretia Cutter? Bertolt asked, astonished. Darkus and Virginia shook their heads. The House of Cutter is one of the biggest fashion brands in the world. Lucretia Cutter is known as the mad scientist of fashion, Bertolt said. She's a genius and a powerful businesswoman. They stared blankly back at him. You must have seen the winged scarab logo on handbags and stuff. He drew a circle in the air with his fingers. How come you know about fashion? Darkus asked, surprised. My mum reads magazines, Bertolt blushed. So what has this fashion designer got to do with beetles? Virginia wondered. Or your dad, for that matter. Last season, she made a suit of armour from spider silk for the ghost of Joan of Arc, Bertolt said. Maybe she wants to make a dress out of beetles. Gruesome! Virginia pulled a face. A dress made of insects. I can't believe you saw her, Bertolt said to Darkus. She's hardly ever seen out, not since her accident. She doesn't even attend her own shows. Accident? She was in a terrible car crash about a year ago. Bertolt's high-pitched voice dipped into a dramatic whisper. The papers said she would never walk again. She had sticks when I saw her, Darkus said. She moved weirdly, but she can walk. They say she almost died, Bertolt added. Yeah, well, you can't always believe the papers, Darkus said bitterly. Anyway, Uncle Max says she's bad news. Bertolt looked dismayed. Why? I'm not sure. I'm guessing she must know Dad, because Uncle Max told me Dad used to be a beetle expert. But listen, there's more. Darkus went on to describe hearing the neighbours arguing, discovering Furniture Forest, climbing the tree and finding the mountain of cups full of beetles, then being captured. Bertolt looked nervous as he told of his escape and Lucretia Cutter's visit, and seeing the girl get out of the car and drop her card. Darkus left out the bit about her blowing him a kiss. It was too embarrassing, and he knew that Virginia would tease him. And if you don't believe me, he pulled out a white rectangle card out of his pocket and held it out. This is it. Bertolt took the card and read, Novak Cutter, actress, Towering Heights, Regent's Park, London. He looked up. That's a fancy address. Hang on. Virginia held her hands up. This is getting crazy. You're telling me that Baxter flew in and helped you like some kind of super beetle and made the other beetles gnaw through the rope so that you could escape? Yes, Darkus frowned. He could tell Virginia didn't believe him. Look, I need your help. I feel like I'm doing a dot-to-dot puzzle, only there's loads of dots with no numbers and I can't work out how they're connected. Look, I get that there's a lot going on, but a beetle with superpowers. Virginia pursed her lips and raised her eyebrows. You are kidding me. I know it sounds like I made it up, but this is not a joke. Darkus shook his head. I can't talk to anyone else about it. Uncle Max is a bit weird about Baxter already, and he'd kill me if he knew what happened last night. He might make me give Baxter away. He looked from Virginia to Bertolt. I need you to believe me. That's why I brought you here, to show you. Show us what? Virginia asked. Baxter, Darkus held out his hand as far as possible. Time to do your stuff. Fly to my shoulder. The beetle's elytra lifted and his soft wings unfurled, vibrating as he jumped into the air, flew the short distance to Darkus's shoulder and landed, turning around and settling in his favourite spot. Bertolt's and Virginia's faces were a picture of shock. How did you do that? Bertolt squeaked, astonished. Darkus shrugged. I didn't do anything. Do it again, Virginia said. Her low voice was insistent. No, get Baxter to do something else. Do something harder. Baxter, Darkus whispered. Fly up, do a loop. His finger traced the movement in the air, and then land on Virginia's hand. He reached over and took her hand, opening it and holding it palm up. Okay? Go. Baxter leapt into the air, zooming upside down in a circle before coming to land on Virginia's palm. Ah! No way! She shrieked with delight. Shh! Darkus scolded. And you say there are more of these beetles up there? Bertolt pointed at the emporium. They're not all like Baxter, Darkus said, but yes, there are hundreds, maybe even thousands of different beetles up there. This is amazing, Virginia said, staring down at the rhinoceros beetle on her hand. Now do you believe me? Darkus asked, enjoying himself. You betcha! Virginia looked at him, an excited sparkle in her eyes. She held out her hand in front of Darkus's shoulder so Baxter could clamber back. So will you help me? Virginia nodded. Darkus looked at Bertolt. And you? He pushed his glasses up his nose and swallowed nervously. I'll do my best. So what's your plan? Virginia asked. Lucretia Cutter wants the beetles up in that room, Darkus said, and if she gets her hands on them, she'll kill them. I heard her say so. Baxter's elytra flickered open and then closed. It's okay, Baxter. We're not going to let that happen. He looked at Virginia. I don't know much about beetles, but if any of them are like Baxter, then they're special and should be studied, not killed. Darkus felt himself getting angry. We need to find out more about those beetles. Where did they come from? And why does Lucretia want them? And most importantly, we need to find out how she knows my dad. And if there's any link between these beetles and whatever Dad was working on. An image of a folder under his uncle's arm flashed into his head. I think it might be something called the Faber Project. I wish you could hear how crazy you sound right now, Virginia chuckled. This is not funny, Darkus found himself shouting. Shh! Bertolt looked alarmed. Whoa, calm down, I get it. Virginia held her hands up. We're on a beetle preservation mission, fighting against an evil tycoon from the fashion industry who may or may not have kidnapped your dad for some reason to do with beetles that we don't know yet. She smiled. I'm in. I was just saying it sounds crazy. She leant back and grinned, but crazy is cool. Bertolt reached over and put his hand on Darkus's arm. I'll do everything I can to help you find your dad, Darkus, he said earnestly. Thanks. Darkus felt suddenly deflated. His His head had been spinning ever since he'd visited the museum, and now that he'd finally emptied the contents of it to Virginia and Bertolt, he could hear how strange he sounded. "Sorry for shouting." That's okay." Virginia gently punched his arm. "I don't really have a plan," he admitted. "But I can't let Lucretia Cutter go in there and murder all those beetles. Let's make an oath." Virginia held her hand out. "An oath?" "I, Virginia Wallace, solemnly do swear to help Darcus Cuttle in his mission to find his father and save the beetles." Bertolt put his hand flat on top of Virginia's. "I, Bertolt Roberts, solemnly do swear to help Darcus Cuttle in his mission to find his father and save the beetles." Darcus did the same. It's a nice little picture there, can you see? Next part. "I, Darcus Cuttle, solemnly do swear that I will not rest until I've found my dad and the beetles are safe." Baxter zoomed down and landed on the back of Darcus's hand. They all looked at each other and then at the rhinoceros beetle. "There," Virginia said, "we've made an oath, and now it's got to happen." They decided the first thing to do was build a camp in Furniture Forest so that they can keep a closer eye on the Emporium. Virginia wanted to go up the sycamore tree and see the beetles, but Darcus thought they should wait until Humphrey and Pickering were out, and Bertolt had strongly agreed. "As there's 3 of us on this adventure," Bertolt said, "shouldn't we have a name like the Fabulous 4 or the Famous 5? "No!" Virginia screwed up her face. "We're not having a name." "But we could be called the 3 Beetleteers," Bertolt said. "Like the 3 Musketeers, but with beetles." "What are you? 7? Names are lame." Bertolt wasn't listening. "Or we could be a gang called the Beetle Boys." He paused. "And girl." "Can I tape his mouth up?" Virginia asked. "He's getting on my nerves." Darcus laughed. "How about the Bug Detectives?" Bertolt tilted his head, looking hopeful. "I'd rather eat my own leg than be in a gang called the Bug Detectives." Virginia shook her head and changed the subject. "Where are we going to build the camp?" Just going to pause there. Your challenge from today: see if you can think of a really good name that you would call yourself if you were going to solve this problem. So if you were going to be a bug detective or a beetleteer, or if you were going to be like the Famous 5 or the Fabulous 4, if you were either Bertolt, Virginia or Darcus, what would you call your little mission? What would you call your little group? Send me that on an email. I'd love to read the different ideas that you've got. It needs to be a place far away enough from the Emporium that we can make a bit of noise and not be discovered, but with a clear view so that we can see into all the windows, Darcus reasoned. "That's going to be in the back left-hand corner," Bertolt said. "The sycamore tree obscures the view from the right." "We need to make proper paths through the furniture," Darcus said, "so we can move around quickly and disappear if we need to." "Can we make booby traps?" Bertolt asked, "in case someone tries to follow us in here?" "That sounds good," Darcus nodded enthusiastically. "What about explosions?" Bertolt's nostrils flared at the thought. "In the booby traps, I mean." I think most of this furniture is flammable," Darcus replied with a frown. "Of course," Bertolt scratched his head. "Perhaps just a few bangers." "Come on then." Virginia moved on to her hands and knees, crawling away through a backless cupboard. "Let's get moving." The 3 of them set about worming their way around Furniture Forest, mapping its alleyways and dead ends, quietly moving things to clear paths and create a labyrinth only they knew the secrets of. They signalled to each other in silence as they moved chairs, lifted boxes and slid shelves around, creating hidden doorways, wider tunnels and paths to nowhere. At the southern corner of the yard, as far away from the Emporium as possible, they constructed a room against the garden walls, using tall pieces of furniture and sheets of tarpaulin for the roof. They dragged in the grandfather clock, complete with resident mouse, and used the black door with the silver 73 to make the entrance. "We should call this place Base Camp," Bertolt suggested, as he pushed a circular coffee table into the middle of the floor. That's what you call the camp on a mountainside just before you get to the top. Gonna stop there for today. Thank you very much, Year 4.